When people want a just sex relationship, they can hardly resist the lure of traumatized people who will pour out pure gold from their hearts and yet suffer in silence that their friend with benefits never returns that love. Neglect in childhood does that to people. It makes you feel ashamed that you want and need something more than a fling. It scares you into thinking that you better just settle for whatever you can get. And the terrible thing is, when you do that, you throw away years of your life longing and suffering and literally blocking any way that real love could ever find you. My letter today is from a woman I'll call Amaya, and she writes, "Hi, Anna. I grew up in a troubled home. I'm the eldest of 3 siblings, and I'm the scapegoat for my self-righteous, narcissistic mother." All right, I've got the fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things I want to come back to on a second reading, but let's go through and see what's happening in Amaya's life right now. She says, her golden child is my sister, and my brother sort of sits on the fence, tipping over on each side, depending on whether he's been good or notorious. As for me, I have never felt close to my mother, and growing up, I had a very difficult time trying to connect with her and share things. The bond just did not blossom between us. Somehow I felt that she was on a different wavelength than I was, and we were very different people. She was and remains cold and distant. I have had periods of prolonged silent treatment given to me by her, each time making me remember events to analyze what I could have done so terribly wrong to piss her off this bad. I became exhausted of this hot and cold treatment and decided to go no contact. It's been a relief, though I feel guilty at times. My other parent, my father, was a loving man, full of life and loved food and soccer. We were like great buddies, and we understood each other. We seemed to be battling the same demon, my mom. He had an unhappy marriage with her, but stayed in for me and siblings. He also had his fair share of troubles like nicotine addiction and extramarital affairs. I feel he was looking for solace amid his unloving and often unpredictable wife, who had no interest in keeping the marriage alive, but was rather like a parasite living off of him. Very sadly, my father passed away in 2017. As for my personal life, I've never had a normal, healthy, future-promising adult relationship. Somehow, I've been attracting all the wrong men in my life. You knew I was going to circle that, right? With an underline on attracting. Okay. The married, the unavailable, the available for relationship but doesn't believe in marriage, the cheater, Mr. Busy, the overprotective and controlling one, etc. Okay. My current dilemma goes back to 2019. I had been in the second year of a new job when I started chatting with this guy on Facebook, and he's a public figure in my country. The conversation flowed, and we decided to meet. I agreed at first, but while waiting to pick him up after work, at this time I was doing noon shifts, I felt it was a terrible idea and wished he wouldn't turn up. But he did, and the meeting wasn't that bad. He started pursuing me thereafter and wanted to meet more often, but there was a deal breaker. He wanted to be friends with benefits. That put me off completely, as I wasn't into no strings attached relationships and wanted stability and reciprocated feelings. Despite my strong no, he would still ask me out. At the end of 8 months, I decided to meet him for coffee, followed by a movie night. He wasn't a bad or creepy person. He was very accommodating and generous. We laughed a lot and started liking each other's company. Soon I was visiting him at his place more often, and it didn't take long to have sex. I felt weird after our first time because I knew he didn't love me or want a relationship. I had somehow given in to his request to be his placeholder. This went on for about 2 years. Woo! And we would meet and cook together, have dinner, watch Netflix, and chill, and in my mind, I was getting all attached. I had fallen for him and wanted a life with him. I finally gathered all my courage one afternoon and confessed my feelings to him. He maintained his stand that he was just into it for the sex and the friendship we shared. I was heartbroken to know that his feelings had not shifted in 2 years. Days after this, he messaged to say his parents were arranging a marriage for him and he would have to abide by the wishes of his dying mother. I was further devastated. I just wanted to turn the clock back and have him all by myself. although he was never really mine. I had a big argument with him and poured my heart out that he had used me for his convenience. In his defense, he said he had been clear from the beginning and made me look like a fool for falling for him. Then the COVID lockdowns happened, and we were all locked away, working from home. When things started to normalize, our equation also began to normalize. He again wanted to see me and have what we had. I was happy to have him back and thought the marriage thing was now a thing of the past. I did not talk about it, and neither did he. Well, there you go. We were back, and that's what mattered. A couple years ago, I was offered a scholarship to study abroad and told him about it. We were both happy about my study opportunity and celebrated over dinner. I thought that after my study would be the best time for us to finally settle down. Woo-woo, big leap there, okay. I left my country in June of that year, and to my shock, he got married in July. I was completely and utterly in ruins. I had so many questions and no answers. Where was this other girl all this while? Was this a calculated move? Was he desperately waiting for me to clear his way so he could marry her? Did my scholarship just help ease his desperation? I was so lost. I sought counseling via student services and managed to do well in my studies. Life in a new country had taken over, and I was slowly getting stronger and leaving my hurt behind. I think what helped most was the new environment, people, challenging units of study, and just the new vibe. Then life threw another curveball when I returned to my country. I got a job back in the same city where we were once lovebirds. I deliberately chose a flat on the opposite side of the city compared to his residential place to ensure I never see him in traffic. Though I've never seen him since I returned, I have this internal plunge, I'm not sure what that means, that my wound and hurt are opening and beginning to show in myself. I'm not sure what that means, but I think I know what it means. Yeah, the wound hurts. He has somehow been on my mind a lot recently. I find myself being limerent over him, hoping in hindsight that we'll meet and reignite our chemistry. My logical brain sees the dysfunction. It knows it's morally wrong to think this way of a married man. It knows I need to move on, turn my cab light on, and meet other available men. But my emotional side is just sort of frozen. It's not aligning with my logical brain. It seems to want that adventure of going back to the familiar sweet and sour partnership. I have so far been resilient in not giving in to my temptation to message or call him, and neither do I stalk him on social media. The hurt I received from seeing his wedding photos have seemingly barred me from looking at his accounts. I don't know how to align completely and stop this part of myself, which is hell-bent on appearing like a fool again. I want to meet someone I genuinely love, and he loves me too. I want a good future, and I want to kick his sick, betraying ass out of my life for good. I want to erase that soft spot I still hold for him. Is it my return to this familiar environment, which is playing games with my head and emotions? Please help. Okay, Amaya, I can help. I'm so sorry. And this happens to the best of us sometimes, especially with a childhood like yours. And that's a lot that you lived through, and what's happening in your life now is so understandable in light of that, with the terrible way that your mother treated you, and then the being your dad's buddy, and how that would have primed you to have most of your emotional needs not met, but be the special buddy who makes it all work for some man. And I don't mean your dad did anything wrong. I can just see how it shaped your emotions so that you could do this again and just be so fond and loving and not ask too many questions from this guy. So let's go through what you told me. Narcissistic mother, some stuff about the siblings, sounds like horrible. And your dad stuck around for the sake of you, and you felt close to him, and then he died in 2017. So, interestingly, not too long after that, you find this guy. So you've never had a normal, healthy, future-promising adult relationship. And here's where I'm gonna show you something that you said that I'm gonna really try to bring your attention to. You said, somehow I have been attracting all the wrong men in my life. Married, unavailable, available for relationship, but doesn't believe in marriage, the cheater, the Mr. Busy, the overprotective and controlling. Just pointing out, your dad was unfaithful. Now, maybe he had his reasons, but you got trained as a kid to tolerate that, right? You must be an attractive person because people are interested in you. You're saying you attract these people, so they're attracted to you. But the only problem here is that you get together with people who are unavailable. And I want you to just make a little space to start opening up to the idea that, sure, they're attracted to you. Many people are attracted to you. But these ones who you're becoming attached to, it's because you attach to them. You are attracted to them. There's this weird way for somebody who was neglected as a kid that somebody who's unavailable just feels like home, It just feels really right. It feels like the right person. And so that's what happens. We are attracted to them. That's the problem. Because if we would just, shut it down and be like, not available, no dice. I'm not going to talk to this guy. I'm not going to hope for him or spend time with him. So, but our minds try to dissociate from that idea that we are playing a role in that we're choosing it, we're connecting to it, we're acting on it by going, I don't know why, I'm just attracting these guys. Well, it's probably just because you're attractive. That's all. So lots of people will be attracted to you. What matters is who you choose, who you let into your heart and your bed, right? Yeah, this was 2 years after your dad died. And you had a new job. You had a lot going on. And you met this guy and you liked him. But you felt weird when you went to go pick him up after work. So it's, I don't know why. You didn't tell me much about this date, but why do I get a weird figure? He's a public figure. And you pick him up after work, and we know how the whole thing played out, that he was using you for a friends with benefit thing. And he just was like totally straightforward about it. Yeah, I just want sex with you. We can be friends around that, but it's not anything that you can count on. I'm not having a relationship with you. I don't love you. That's where he was coming. So I'm just having this picture of you going to go pick him up. Now you keep saying you make a fool of yourself. You're not foolish. You're traumatized. You're this lovely woman. A woman is such a special thing. A woman's love is such a precious thing in this world. So you're not foolish that you give love. It's you're traumatized in that you give it to people who have told you flat out they're not going to give it back. And then you suffer and suffer. And your mind keeps trying to find ways that somehow you can make it change the nature of the relationship. And, we have movies like Pretty Woman or whatever, that show us see, true love will win. But it almost never would under those circumstances where a guy's like, no, this is just friends with benefits. What we don't want to be is the cool girl. And that's the word for a woman who is so accommodating of a guy who really doesn't give much back to her that she ends up sabotaging her own happiness and her own future. Don't be the cool girl. So, you're saying things like, I had a strong no. You had a weak no. Your no didn't mean no, so it wasn't a strong no. You tried for a while. And then you kind of picked up again. And that's the thing. It's this darn loneliness. Everything bad I've ever done, I've done because I was lonely. Lonely or overwhelmed, I guess. And loneliness is tough. The number one problem here is not having enough love and friendship in your life and having to call again some guy where you already know it just makes you feel full of pain and disrespected and not loved, right? Why would we go back to something like that? Because we're just so darn lonely that even something crappy feels better. I get it. It's not crazy. And it's not foolish either. What are we? We're these wise beings who just go around, with all knowledge. No, we're like human beings who suffer and figure things out and talk to each other. So you're exactly in a perfectly understandable situation. You have not lost your dignity, and you're asking all the right questions about how you can get on course for what you actually want and deserve in your life. So that's all good. But I just noticed that when you say you attract these people and, but he just kept pursuing you, I think what you're missing a little bit here is how much power you actually have to make decisions about your life. And if you were to get very, very clear what you want, I think it would make it easier in those high pressure situations where you're so dang lonely and he's saying he wants to hang out and you guys could have dinner and watch a movie and it would be so much better than going home alone tonight. But when you really know what you want, you can make that hard choice to let that go by so that pretty soon you can have that dinner and a movie with somebody who's totally into you, who's really excited to be having dinner with you. that is possible for you. So in a weird way, when those of us with attachment wounds, put all of our energy, just pour it out for somebody who flat out isn't going to give it back, we're avoiding love. Maybe we're the avoidance. They're just doing what they do. They didn't even write a letter, so who can even say what their motivation is, But we can imagine, I know what your motivation is. You want to have a good partner, right? You want to just be safe and loved and have somebody who is into you and gets you and to enjoy life with. And that's a good thing to want. That's a beautiful part of you. So that's all. These people are getting in under the fence to, when they don't have that to give you. So you can change that. When you said you were angry at him, that it turns out he had an arranged marriage going and then the pandemic came and that didn't happen right away. And then suddenly he was married and didn't tell you. That is so awful. That's awful to have sex with somebody and not even tell them, oh, I'm getting married next month. I mean, it is awful. That's mistreatment of you. And isn't it funny how, being mistreated can awaken stronger love, and you can't stop thinking about him. And now he's married, and it's an issue that he's married, and you shouldn't be pursuing a married man. That's an issue. But the thing I want you to really focus on is that part of you, and I think it was trained by your mom, the trauma bonding. Blowing hot and cold. Oh, I just adore you. And you're so great. Now go away. I'm getting married. That is hot and cold, even though you knew it was just friends with benefits. Hiding that from you and not allowing you to put that into your equation, which, would have given you the chance. Who even knows if you would have left, right? I know how compelling it is sometimes. So if you're not careful, though, I would not be surprised if he's somebody who would be happy to have an affair with you and many others. It feels like that because of the dishonesty in not telling you that a wedding was about to happen. So that, he'd be happy to do that. I don't want you to be the person who throws away her whole, special time in life to be loved and to love somebody else on somebody who's just taking, like a vampire, right? A romantic shoplifter, I call them. They just take from you and, like it's theirs. And because we're traumatized, we have a hard time defending against it. But that's why we get together. That's why you wrote this letter. You have all of us. And, if you ever want to come into the Crappy Childhood Fairy membership, we have like a whole bunch of people who support each other and sticking to what they actually want in life, even when they're feeling alone in the world. It helps so much to have friends on the journey with you. Because then you're not alone and you have people you can talk to and say, I feel like calling him, and people can go, call me instead. Here, call me. How you doing? Tell me about your day. It helps so much to have people like that. I think that these these vampire-like relationships, it's very hard for them to happen in the life of somebody who is loved and connected to other people. So it seems like the solution is all about how you handle him, but the solution is really about how you handle your joy and your friendships in your life. And so that you have more of that and you have fun things to go to. Limerence crops up when life is bleak, right? It's like a desperate measure to get something exciting in your life, even when there's nothing exciting in your life. So when life is bleak, it will turn to limerence. That's happening now. I can tell you need fun and you need friends. You need people who care about you, and it will take the pressure off. I would definitely suggest, just make a rule with yourself. You're not going to contact that man ever again. And if you're thinking about it, if you want to date differently in the future, I really recommend that you start by writing down what you do want and getting clear and owning it and standing up for it. And that's how my whole dating course goes. That's in part of the membership. If you're a member, you can take that, or there's links to everything down in the description section below if you want to check that out. So feelings are going to come up. Getting over a relationship where there's a strong attachment, even when it's miserable, can be like a withdrawal from a strong drug, but it passes. It passes. And just like with drugs, cold turkey, that's the way. So you were asking, how can I let this go and get over it? I would say, you've written this letter. You've had it read on YouTube for you. Let this be the last time you talk about it for a long time. There's no need to talk about it anymore. It doesn't define you. It's no longer important to your story. And the more you talk about it, the more you activate like old associations and longings and things. And sometimes, I've had to get over a lot of things in my life. Sometimes relationships, sometimes nicotine. And let's just talk about nicotine as an analogy to this kind of withdrawal. I had to stop thinking about cigarettes. At first I would just think about them all the time and go, oh, that would be so good right now. And I realized like it was going to be hard for me to get through that if I was going to just sit and romanticize the cigarettes and how good that would feel and how hard this is. And I just was like, every time I caught myself thinking about cigarettes, I go like, not that thought, just not that thought. And I would focus on something positive and sweet. It could be anything like flowers, puppies, the sky, art, just something that's easy for you to think about that makes you think nice thoughts. And I'm not saying all life has to be perfect, but you just need a happy thought to go to. And some people do it with like an affirmation. Some people do it with a rubber band snapping on their wrist. That's never worked for me. And I don't know. It's not going to hurt anybody if it works for you, but just something to discourage yourself from indulging in that thought. And don't talk about them. People like to women like to get together and talk about, I know this guy. And of course, I've encountered a lot of limerent people in my life and in my work. And what I know, and sometimes even in the way they write letters to me, you didn't do this, but it's like another opportunity to try to get somebody to listen to the whole story of this amazing romance. And it's not good to go into that story or relive it or try to recruit other people to care about it. It's over. It's gone. It's out of your life now. So not talking about it and not thinking about it, I think, are very underrated ways to get something out of your mind. And then if a lot of emotions come up, and if you having a rough past, having kind of addictive type thinking about a relationship that actually wasn't good, but you're sort of getting dopamine out of it, it's very good to have a way to process your stressed out thoughts and feelings. And that is why I'm always talking about the daily practice. So if you want to start right there, that's a nice way, again, linked in the description section below, techniques that can help get you emotional relief under any circumstances. Now, just to get you started thinking about something kind of happy about your dating future, I have this free download, and it's called Signs That Someone is a Good Partner. This is a really good thing to kind of like memorize what is a good partner so that you start to have criteria to evaluate people who appear in your life, whether they're worth your time at all. If you want that, you can click on it right here and it will download, and I will see you very soon.